All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Love
Doing-
it. Love it. Anybody want to share anything fun you did over the weekend?
I can go. I went to, I think it's called Touch a Truck. It was at Carolina Place Mall, actually. So I took my kids there, and it was like different vehicles and things like that, fire trucks, dump trucks, just like cool things like that. So that was fun, and actually was a pretty good networking opportunity too. So enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure the kids had a blast with that.
Oh, they did. I'll share some pictures.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd love to see them.
Thanks.
My wife and I took one of our granddaughters to Disney on Ice Saturday. Not a networking event, but still.
I've heard it was fun. Did you guys have a good time?
We did. We did. It was a good show. So the 6-year-old loved it, and that's all that mattered.
Oh, yay.
Yep. Anybody else want to share anything at all fun over the weekend or just anything great going on that in business that you want to share? All right, well then let's get rolling, folks. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at August, some of the final August housing numbers, and you're probably saying, well, Chip, this is October. Yeah, there's a pretty big delay in the process of getting some of this data out. It usually is on a 3-week lag, by the way, for us to get to September numbers. Could even be further delayed since the government's on shutdown right now. So some of that data probably isn't being calculated yet. So we may see some delays of seeing the final September numbers. So let's look at August. And I just want to put some things into perspective here for us before I do a screen share. So this latest report came from NAR, National Association of Realtors, and it's talking about the monthly existing home sales report. Okay. So here's some of that kind of the key points that came out of that report. The non-seasonally adjusted or seasonally adjusted rate was down 1.2% this August compared or through this August compared to through August of last year. And don't forget, last year's sales were at the lowest level since 1995. So this August, we actually through this August, we're even a slight tick behind that. Okay. Now on the seasonally adjusted rates, annual rates, we were kind of hanging around the 4 million unit mark. And we've kind of been there really, to be honest, for the last 2.5 years now, which again takes us back to like a 1995 rate. So we're looking at historically things that are running at about a 30-year low for us in terms of the activity. And don't forget, guys, these are national numbers. And we're going to kind of keep that in the back of your minds, the national stuff, because we're going to look at some citywide and some regional stuff here in a minute too. Months of supplies above the pre-pandemic levels. And we're going to look at that in just a second. The month's supply is now at the highest level for an August time period, going back to 2015. The median price nationally is up 2% year over year. Yet we're seeing increases in inventory, and some of the regional areas could potentially see some further price declines. And we might even see a national price decline later this year or going into early 2026. All right, so I just wanted to kind of set the stage with that. So let me do a screen share here real quick. Screen share. All right, here we go. Can you guys see? Can you guys see this graph in here? It starts at the top. It says closed sales August 2025. You guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it, buddy. All right, so what this does, this breaks it down. These are gonna be the actual deals that have closed, residential sales, units that have closed nationally. And what this is doing, it's looking at August of this year compared to August of last year. It also, as a reference point, goes back and puts in August of 19, which they call the pre-pandemic. You know, the year prior to COVID kind of shutting everything down and changing the world. So it's just the comparisons and reference point. So I want to go right here to Charlotte. So Charlotte, August of this year, 3,773 units closed. August of last year, 3,898. August of 19, 5,020. So this August compared to last August, down 3.2% the amount of closed units. And comparing August of this year to August of 19, we're down almost 25% in closed units. So remember what I said, we're going to be looking at some things here. Here's actually, when we get to months of supply, this is going to stand out maybe a little bit better. Yet, you know, so here's the thing about national numbers. And so far we've been talking about national, but when things get broken down by city or geographical area, some of these are basically, they're saying like Miami area, or they say New Jersey, New York, you know, South Carolina, for example. What we can see here is that while there's national data we're looking at, we can see that regionally or even locally, there can be some wild changes in between, right? So if I compare, Alabama is up 2.5%, while Albuquerque's down and Atlanta's down 5%. Okay, that's a difference of about 7 to 8 percentage points of being positive to negative in the amount of closed sales August of this year compared to August of last year. So this is why it's so important when we say you have to be the local economist. This is what we mean by it, because so much of the data that comes out is national. Our opportunity then is to be the local. So in other words, if we understand what's happening, for example, in Charlotte, and I think I mentioned it last week, if we have somebody that's moving to Charlotte from another location and they're like, yeah, we're thinking about getting our house on the market. Okay, well, we're going to look at another chart here in a minute talking about inventory and new listings. It kind of gives an idea of, you know, what to expect of that person who's going to be a seller in another market, but a buyer in yours. And if they have to sell before they can buy, then guess what? You know, that could impact the process of you helping them buy here. And it's really important that we understand what's happening in local markets and not just from a national perspective. Okay. If we look at some of the bigger gains here, Indiana, okay, up 6.6%. Louisiana, 5.4%. Des Moines, Iowa, 9.1% increase. Yeah, here's a big one here. Look at San Diego, down 10.1%. There was another one. Houston, yeah, Houston's up almost 12%. So again, you can see it's all over the place. Maryland, the state of Maryland, down 9%. Vegas, down 16%. So imagine somebody's moving from Vegas coming to Houston and you're going, wow, you know, we sold in Vegas, 16% fewer homes were sold. And yet you're coming to a market that's pretty vibrant where there's a lot more homes being sold. So how competitive does the buyer need to be and how prepared can they be if maybe they're trying to sell their house in Vegas where there's fewer homes selling? So it's just a great way to kind of look at this. I mean, that spread alone is, you know, 28% difference, percentage points different between two markets. So be the local economist. All right, let's keep scrolling through here. This is kind of getting the seasonably adjusted rate. Here's August, seasonably adjusted. And ironically on this one, here's a point they made. There was, what's the difference with seasonably adjusted rate? So here's the thing, guys, there was one more selling day this year compared to last year. So there's one more day of data that basically popped in there that changed that number. So sometimes even seasonality has nothing to do with time of year per se. It could even be just the fact that we had more selling day opportunities in 1 month compared to the same month the prior year. Again, they don't have September in here yet, but there's September of last year, which was declining a little bit over August of last year. But then as typical, we tend to see the tick upwards in, closing out the year in that final quarter. All right, months of supply. So before I kind of show you all this, I kind of gave it away here a little bit. Months of supply, remember a balanced market is how many months?
5 to 7.
Okay, 5 to 7 is a balance. If we're more than 7, what kind of a market are we in?
Buyers.
Buyers. We have less than 5 to 7, we're in a seller's market, right? All right, so let's take a look at this. The Miami area months of supply, 7.9 months, almost 8 months of inventory in the Miami area. Buyer's market or seller's market?
Buyers.
San Antonio, Austin, 5.8, 5.6 months of supply. Buyer or seller? Or
Buyer.
Buyer, seller, or balance?
We're in a balanced market, I would say. Leaning towards the buyers, moving towards the buyers.
Probably moving towards it. Yeah, we don't have, I mean, this is just giving us the monthly look in from August. So we don't know what the trend is doing. Is it increasing or is it decreasing or is it staying relatively steady? But as of August, looking at the numbers, that part of Texas, which these two are pretty close to each other, pretty much a balanced market, maybe still a little bit on the seller side, but really, I would call it more of a balanced market there. Mid Florida, 5.3 months, Jacksonville 5.2, and we keep declining down. So let's see how we're doing here. South Carolina, 3.9 months. So we're still in a seller's market in South Carolina. Charlotte, 3.2 months. Remember San Diego on the last one had that big decline in the amount of units, but yet with that, there's not a lot of people, I guess, putting their house on the market. So San Diego's still sitting at about 3 months. They're still technically a seller's market. And if we look all the way down here, we get to the state of Illinois or Santa Clara, California, 1.7, 1.8 months of inventory, New Hampshire, 1.9 months. Still very much into a seller's market here. To be honest, guys, I would say pretty much anybody that's 3 or less, or we could even say under 3, is still a pretty vibrant seller's market for the most part. Okay, so again, we know we have a lot of people that are moving from some of these areas, and it just gives you that that kind of perspective where you can talk to your potential buyer client, again, if they have something to sell, or talk to their agent, and just get a feel for the market, what's happening up there, and that helps you position them the best way here based on what they're trying to accomplish. Okay, now let's look at new listings in August. Again, pretty similar to the ones, the chart we saw for the closed units. So if we look at new listings, Charlotte in August, 4,979, August of last year, 5,158, August of 19, 5,687. So we brought 3.5% fewer new listings to the market in August of this year compared to last. And this August compared to August of 19, it was 12% fewer new listings hitting the market. Okay, where do we see, what markets are we seeing any increases in the amount of listings hitting? They're small so far from what we see. Here's a big one here, Columbus, about a 3.9% increase. Okay, Maryland showed up on our other chart. They've had 18% fewer new listings hitting the market in August. Here's an increase, New Hampshire, 9% up. Here's another increase, look at Raleigh. Raleigh had a 5% increase in new listings this August compared to last August. Well, we were down 3.5%. So even just in the Carolinas, a city, another big metro area, 2 to 3 hours away, we can see the huge difference in just the amount of real estate activity in the same month, right? San Diego, 13% fewer new listings. Santa Clara, 12.9% fewer. State of Virginia, 7.6% up. So overall, nationally, we're down about 2% this August compared to last August, and we're down about 18% this August compared to August of 19. All right, let's keep rolling. So we took the new listings in August. The next one's gonna show us then how much stuff is available, like the listings that are actually on the market and have not gone under contract yet. So let's take a look at that, because this next chart is what's really gonna start kind of giving us that perspective of this thing called inventory, what's available to purchase, okay? So let's see active inventory. Let's go right here to Charlotte first. Year over year, August of this year compared to August of last year, we have almost 27% more available homes on the market. And we see about 11.5% increase of this August compared to August of 2019. If we kind of go through this, we can see it'd be probably quicker to look at the markets that haven't had it, that aren't experiencing an increase in inventory. Las Vegas, okay, that one shows up again here. They're up 41% the amount of homes that are available for purchase. This August compared to last year, they're only up 1%, 1.5% versus August of 19. Here's another one, Miami area, 18%, mid-Florida, 15%, Memphis, 16%, Nashville, 24%. Yeah, there's some big numbers in here in terms of the amount. Look at San Antonio, 56% more available inventory this year than last year. And the list goes on. So nationally, this is what it looks like. We have 16% more homes on the market available in the US, 768,000, compared to August of last year of 661. And so that's a pretty significant increase in the total available inventory. Yet, what did they say in the other one in terms of the talking points of this entire report? Our median price is still up, but we see now the markets where potentially we could start seeing some prices decreasing, simply because we're seeing more active inventory on the market and bigger increases. So this is where the law of supply and demand hits, right, guys? If there's lower demand but higher supply, what happens to price? Lower demand, prices go down, and the inverse is correct as well. So that's why we're not seeing these rapid price increases, because we see in big major markets around the country, we can see the increase that we're seeing in all of these markets in terms of the available homes for sale. Doesn't mean that we're guaranteed to see a price decline, but we're seeing a more rational or slower price appreciation rate. And we got the kind of the warning that perhaps later this year or going into early next year, we could see a national decline in pricing. All right, so that's that report. Here's the next one I want to go and look at. Going right into prices. The National House Price Index up 1.7 year over year, and that's in July. So they have not released the September numbers yet. But again, here we go. We can see all the different, this is the Case-Shiller National Index, and it compares all the months year over year, going back to, in this case, 2000. Okay. So of course, in here, we had the Great Recession, the market crash and the Great Recession. Right here, we had the pandemic, right in this area right here. And then we've seen, like, when the interest rates went up dramatically and quickly, 22 going into 23, there's that decline showing up there, okay? So I just want us to take a quick look at that. The price, the Federal Finance Agency price index declined 0.1% in July. So here's the thing, guys. This is something we just have to keep an eye on, what's happening with home prices, because this is the one that typically everybody kind of gets stuck on a little bit. Maybe you find buyers that are afraid to buy because they're afraid the price is going to go down, right? Or they're starting to see headlines where, you know, prices are declining. Here's the thing to keep in mind with this. What prices are declining? Is it list prices or is it sold prices? You know, are we seeing declines in the amount of the list prices out there? In other words, are we seeing price reductions? Yes, we are. we're definitely seeing price reductions. But what are the homes actually closing at? What is that price? Because it's the closed price that's giving us this type of headline, right? That's the index they're looking at, is what are the homes selling for? So that's why in our market here in the Charlotte area, we are still seeing around a 2, slightly above 2% increase in the closed sale prices in our market. If you think about it from a national perspective, the government typically likes to see does anybody know what the appreciation rate that the government typically likes us to be at, where we have a healthy market, it's sustainable, it's not creating bubbles? Does anybody know what that number is, that percentage?
Is it 4.2 or?
Yeah, it's
Just
right around
guessing.
4%. Yeah, it's right around 4%, Dave. So the federal government, they look at a lot of things and they're like, well, if residential real estate is increasing at an average of 4% per year, it's a healthy market, it's probably somewhat balanced, there's enough demand, interest rates are probably where they need to be, builders are putting new homes out there, resales are hitting the market at a healthy enough rate where there's enough inventory for people to buy. But it's not creating these big jumps in like supply that just sits there, where we see everything's in a buyer's market, because that's where we'll start seeing prices decline. And then Freddie Mac puts out also a price index as well. This is Freddie Mac's their take on it through August, 1.6%. And they even have up here in the headline, the Punta Gorda area house prices down almost 20% from the peak. So if you got people that are maybe doing something, moving from or moving to Punta Gorda, Florida, that kind of tells you what they're faced with, right? It could be a great buying opportunity, may not be so great if they're on the seller side. So guys, there's a lot of great information that kind of hits us all the time. Like I said, we will probably see a little bit of a slowdown in getting the data for September, but that's okay. Once it comes out, we'll see it. These next two up here, I'm not going to cover these. This is for another week. This household growth projection and the delinquency rate. We're going to talk about that stuff next week. But anyways, with that said, I'm going to stop sharing here. What do you guys have for thoughts, comments, questions, ahas? Anything at all? Are you using this stuff in conversations with prospects, with your database, with random people that you may meet even in the grocery store that have a question about the real estate market once they find out you're in real estate?
Chip, one of the things that I say a lot to clients is that Charlotte's a lagging market. We're usually, I know when the market crashed in 2007, 8, 9, I remember us just rolling along, and then the rest of the country starting to get beat up, and then it hit us 6 months later. But it just seems like it's a little bit quirky this time around. Seems like there are some markets like Las Vegas or Miami, some of those hot markets, Phoenix, that are getting beat up, but then there's some of them that normally get beat up that are doing well. So it's hard to use that term, that lagging market term, with a lot of confidence and strength right now.
Yeah, it's funny, Dave, typically what I've noticed before in the past with any kind of real estate trends is that the bigger shifts against where we are, or opposite of where we are locally here, the bigger ones tend to start out west. So, okay, we saw some data for Vegas, we saw some data for San Diego. If I can recall some of the big markets from the last crash, big crash, we definitely saw Vegas, we saw Phoenix, we saw San Diego, we saw Miami. Miami's issue right now is just the amount of like new build condos that are flooding the market down there. It's at a crazy rate. That's the same thing that happened to them going into 2007 too, right? Because that's what they kind of have to build there just because of the way land is. Phoenix is about a sprawl. Vegas was about a sprawl. San Diego, a little bit about a sprawl. A lot of single family data that comes out of those markets. But here again, you know, we're starting to see some of those declines in those areas. So is that some sort of an indicator of what might be starting to spread throughout the rest of the country? And as always, the reason we have to look at this stuff so frequently, that's the only way we can spot trends. But here's the thing, guys, I'd rather look at this stuff more frequently. Where we're gonna see the trend, we're gonna figure out the trend, we're gonna see the trend. Rather than look at it 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road and wonder what the heck hit us. Okay, so this is the way that I look at, well, it's a great skill build for us to be prepared to be that local economist. It's also a way for us to sort of forecast what's coming our way and how to best prepare for it. And by the way, it doesn't mean that we have something bad coming. We just know we're gonna have different coming. That's it. All right, gang, final thoughts, comments, questions, ahas. How can I help you guys today?
That was great information, Chip. Thank you so much.
My pleasure as always. The good news is I'm getting some folks lined up, so it's not just me as a solo act here that will be joining us on these Monday mornings, just to give a little bit of, you know, back and forth, similar to what Robin and I had in that respect. So look for that hopefully starting next week. And as always, anything at all I can help you guys with, please just ask. We probably already have a resource or a solution for it. And I just want to help you guys go out and do the best you can every single day. Appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Thank you.